Commander John Miller knew something was wrong the moment the shuttle's warning systems began to flash. The diplomatic mission to the Centauri Collective had been approved through all proper channels. There should have been no surprises. "Sir, we have 3 Centauri warships approaching fast," said Lieutenant Frank Watson from the pilot's seat. His voice remained steady, but his knuckles were white as he gripped the controls. Miller moved to the navigation console. "Hail them. Tell them we're on a sanctioned diplomatic mission." "I've been trying, sir. They're not responding." The shuttle shuddered as a tractor beam locked onto them. Miller had seen enough ambushes to know when one was happening. He quickly pressed his palm against his chest, activating his neural implant with a sequence of taps. The small device, embedded near his heart, was designed for emergency communications and data recording. If things went badly, at least the Alliance would know what happened. "Prepare for boarding." "Weapons down," Miller ordered. "We're outnumbered and outgunned." The shuttle crew, just 4 of them, had no chance against Centauri. Warships. Fighting would only get them killed faster. The tractor beam pulled them into the massive hangar of the lead Centauri ship. Miller had never seen the inside of a Centauri vessel before. Few humans had, and even fewer had lived to tell about it. The Centauri were known for their tall, insect-like bodies and their intense hatred of humans. The shuttle door was forced open. With a hiss of pressurized air, 6 Centauri soldiers stormed in, their chitinous armor clicking as they moved. Their weapons, pulse rifles that could tear a human in half, were aimed at the crew. "Commander John Miller," said one of the Centauri, in surprisingly good English, "you will come with us. The rest will be detained." Miller stood tall. "Under what authority are you seizing a diplomatic vessel?" The Centauri soldier struck Miller across the face with the back of his claw. Blood trickled from Miller's lip. "Humans." "Do not ask questions," the Centauri said. "Humans obey." Miller was dragged from the shuttle. He caught a final glimpse of his crew being forced to their knees before a door slid shut between them. His neural implant recorded everything: the layout of the hangar, the number of guards, the weapons they carried. They marched him through the ship. Miller counted the turns, noted the security checkpoints, and observed the Centauri technology. Even as a prisoner, he remained a soldier gathering intelligence. After a long walk, they entered what appeared to be a command center. A larger Centauri stood at its center. Unlike the soldiers, this one wore no armor, but rather ornate robes that shimmered with an iridescent quality. The frills around its neck were bright red, a sign of high rank in Centauri society. "The human." "Commander, Overseer Krastol," one of the soldiers announced. The overseer turned. Its compound eyes reflected Miller's image back at him many times over. "Commander Miller," Krastol said, his voice deeper and more resonant than the soldiers. "I have waited a long time to meet a human of your stature." Miller stood straight despite the guards holding his arms. "This is a violation of the Proxima Treaty. The Earth Alliance will—" "The Earth Alliance," Krastol interrupted, "will do nothing when they learn of your treachery." "What treachery?" Krastol moved closer. Miller could smell the alien's strange chemical scent. "The treachery we will soon discover when we extract information from your mind. Information about Earth's defense systems, patrol routes, and weaknesses." Miller felt a chill run down his spine, but kept his expression neutral. "I won't tell you anything." "They all say that," Krastol said, "but the neural probes don't require your cooperation." The guards dragged Miller to another room. This one was smaller, with a single chair in the center. The chair had restraints and was connected to a complex machine with dozens of small, needle-like probes. They forced him into the chair and secured the restraints. A Centauri wearing what looked like a medical uniform approached with a device that hummed with energy. "This will hurt," Krastol said, now standing in the doorway. "How much it hurts depends on how much you resist." The first probe touched Miller's temple, and pain exploded through his body. It felt like fire running through his veins. The Zentari medical officer asked questions about Earth's defenses, fleet positions, and command structures. Miller gave them nothing but his name and rank, over and over. The neural implant in his chest worked silently, adapting to the Zentari technology, probing his mind, learning from it. Hours passed. Miller lost track of time as pain became his whole world. But he didn't break. The human mind had one advantage. Over Zentari technology, it was more complex than the aliens understood. Finally, the probes withdrew. Miller's body shook with aftershocks of pain. Sweat soaked his uniform, and blood ran from his nose and ears. Krastal looked frustrated. Impressive resistance for a human, but ultimately futile. Miller managed to raise his head. Then why stop? Because I have a better use for you, Krastal said. In 3 days, there will be a grand assembly on our homeworld. Representatives from all Zentari worlds and our allies will be present. The alien leaned closer. You will be publicly executed as a spy and saboteur. The execution will be broadcast across the sector. The entire galaxy will see what happens to humans who challenge the Zentari collective. Miller said nothing, but his mind was already working. 3 days, a public event. Broadcast signals that could be tracked. His neural implant recorded it all. Take him to the detention level, Krastal ordered. Prepare him for transport to the homeworld. The guards roughly pulled Miller from the chair. His legs nearly gave out, but he forced himself to stand. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing him carry Dot as they led him away. Krastal called after him. Enjoy your final days, Commander. Few humans have seen our homeworld. Fewer still have died there so prominently. Miller was thrown into a small cell aboard the warship. The door sealed with a hiss, leaving him alone in dim blue light. He slumped against the wall, letting his body finally relax from the strain of resistance. When he was certain no one was watching, he tapped a sequence on his chest, checking his neural implant. A small vibration against his skin told him it was still functioning, still recording. The Zentari thought they were creating a spectacle, a warning to humanity. Instead, they were giving him exactly what he needed: time to plan, a change of location, and most importantly, a reason for the Miseries. Alliance to come looking for him. Miller closed his eyes. The pain was still intense, but now there was something else to hope. Miller woke to the sound of the cell door sliding open. 2 Zentari guards entered, their mandibles clicking in what he had learned was their version of casual conversation. They roughly pulled him to his feet. Move, human, one said, prodding him with the butt of a pulse rifle. They led Miller through the detention block of what appeared to be a planetary facility. The gravity felt stronger than on the ship. They had reached the Zentari homeworld while he slept out the cell they brought. Him was larger than the one on the ship. 2 other beings were already inside. One was tall and thin with pale blue skin, a Nexian, Miller guessed. The other was shorter with shifting patches of color moving across its skin like clouds in a time-lapse video. Miller recognized it as a Phorian, a species known for communicating through color patterns rather than sound. The guard shoved Miller inside and sealed the door. Another one for the show, the Nexian said in accented but understandable English. On Vex, trading unauthorized technology. That one, he pointed to the Phorian, doesn't speak. At least not in ways we can hear. Been shifting colors at me. For days. Miller nodded to them both. John Miller, Earth Alliance. Vex's eyes widened. A human commander? No wonder they're making such a fuss. The execution arena has been preparing for days. The Phorian's skin flashed a pattern of deep purple and gold. What's happening in 2 days? Miller asked, picking up on the mention of preparations. Your execution, of course, Vex said. They're turning it into quite the spectacle. The Grand Assembly only happens once every 5 cycles. Representatives from all Zentari worlds will be there. Miller sat on one of the 3 sleeping platforms. Tell me about this execution arena. Vex seemed surprised by Miller's calm. You're either very brave or don't understand what's coming. The neural disintegrator, they use ... It's not a quick death. I understand perfectly, Miller said. But I also need information. Over the next hour, Vex explained what he knew about the Grand Assembly and the execution process. The Forian occasionally flashed patterns that Vex seemed to partially understand. She says there are power fluctuations in the arena when they test the systems. Vex translated from one particularly complex pattern. Miller filed this information away, his neural implant recording everything. Twice a day, guards would bring them food and take them one at a time to a small exercise yard. Miller noticed the guards always followed the same patrol patterns, and the security systems cycled at regular intervals. Each time he returned to the cell, he seemed more tired and compliant than when he left. The guards had begun to see him as broken, exactly what he wanted them to think. In reality, his body was metabolizing the compliance drugs they gave him differently than expected. His mind remained sharp. Meanwhile, aboard the Earth Alliance, Vessel S Defender, Lieutenant Susan Blackwood paced the bridge. Still nothing from Commander Miller's shuttle? She asked the communications officer. No, ma'am. Last contact was 48 hours ago, just before they entered Zentari space. Blackwood stopped pacing. And Command's response? They're calling it a diplomatic incident. They've requested clarification from the Zentari Collective, but you know how slowly they respond. Blackwood knew that by the time official channels produced results, it could be too late. She made a decision. Officer Rivera, I need you to check something for me, she said to the communications specialist. The commander's neural implant, is there any way to track it? Alan Rivera looked surprised. Those are only designed for short-range emergency communications, but he turned to his console and began working. If he activated the emergency protocol, and if the signal managed to reach any of our relay beacons. Hours later, Rivera called Blackwood to his station. I found something, Lieutenant. It's faint, but there's definitely a signal. Coming from ... the Zentari homeworld. He's alive, Blackwood said, relief evident in her voice. There's more, Rivera added. The implant is in recording mode. It's gathering data. Blackwood's expression hardened. He's planning something. She turned to the bridge crew. I need volunteers for a rescue mission. Unofficial? Against orders. Potentially suicidal. Every hand on the bridge went up. Rivera, you're with me for communications. Dr. Green for medical. We'll take a scout ship less likely to be detected. Blackwood looked at the star chart, showing the Zentari homeworld. We go in as traders from the Procyon system. The Zentari. Don't bother checking their identities too closely. Back in the detention cell, Miller was mapping the facility in his mind during his 3rd exercise period. The Forian had begun following him, her skin shifting in patterns that seemed directed. At him, Miller realized she was trying to communicate. He stopped near a corner where the guards couldn't see them clearly. Can you understand me? He whispered. The Forian's skin rippled in what appeared to be an affirmative pattern. Do you know the systems here? The power grid? Another ripple, more complex this time. She pressed her hand against the wall, and patterns of light moved from her skin onto the surface. They formed what looked like a crude map of power conduits. Miller committed it to memory just before a guard rounded the corner. The Forian's skin immediately shifted to a dull gray, appearing to be nothing more than normal color variations. Night, as Miller pretended to sleep, he felt a strange sensation in his stomach. Something he had eaten tasted slightly different. He remained still, feigning sleep while reaching out with his senses. A tiny vibration, almost imperceptible, pulsed. In a pattern, he recognized Alliance emergency code. Someone had managed to get nanic communicators into his food. The microscopic devices would allow limited communication once they integrated with his system. Miller focused on the sensation, sending a response through his neural implant. Aboard the scout ship now in orbit around the Centauri homeworld, Dr. Patricia Green monitored her medical console. "Connection established," she said. "The nanits are integrating with his neural implant." Blackwood leaned forward. "Can he hear us?" "Not exactly. The connection is too weak for audio. But we can send and receive simple data packets." Rivera looked up from his console. "I'm sending him our status and position." "Good," Blackwood said. "Now let's hear his plan, because I'm betting he has one." Back in the cell, Miller received the data packet. His team was here. Against orders, no doubt, but they had come for him. Now he just needed to finalize his plan, a plan that would turn his public execution into something the Centauri would never forget. The execution was scheduled for tomorrow, and the drugs they'd given him were getting stronger. But so was his resistance to them. Miller closed his eyes, focusing on the data his neural implant had gathered. Every system had weaknesses. The Centauri's execution technology used neural disruption, ironically similar to the interrogation device they had used on him. His implant had already adapted to that technology once. With the right timing and the help of his crew, he could turn their spectacle of human weakness into a demonstration of human ingenuity. Miller sent a data packet back through the nanits. His plan was risky, almost certainly painful, and depended on split-second timing. But it was also very, very human. The day before the execution, the Centauri detention facility buzzed with unusual activity. Guards moved with greater purpose, and maintenance workers rushed to prepare the arena. Miller watched it all through half-closed eyes, appearing weak and resigned to his fate while his mind remained sharp and focused. During the morning exercise period, Miller noticed new guards larger, with more ornate armor. Their presence meant someone important had arrived. He needed to know who. As if answering his unspoken question, the Forian prisoner sidled up next to him. Her skin rippled in a pattern he was beginning to understand. Danger. Important. Leader. Miller gave an almost imperceptible nod. The Forian responded with another color pattern. Miller understood enough to get the message. A high-ranking Centauri official had arrived to oversee the execution personally. Back in their cell, Vex confirmed this. "High Executor Dravzik has come," the Nexian whispered. "This is unusual. He rarely leaves the capital city." "Who is he?" Miller asked, keeping his voice low. "Second only to the Supreme Collective Leader. They say he has overseen 1,000 executions, never once showing mercy." Vex studied Miller. "Your death must be very important to them." Miller said nothing, but inside, his thoughts raced. A high-ranking official meant even tighter security, but it also meant the event would have an even larger audience. More eyes watching, more systems engaged, more potential for chaos. The nanits in his system vibrated with an incoming message from Blackwood's team. Miller focused, interpreting the pattern. Position secure. Arena mapped. Ready. He sent back a simple acknowledgement, then asked a question. "Defense systems?" The response came quickly. "Identified. Vulnerable during cycle." Miller had noticed the same thing during his observations. The Centauri's powerful defensive shields cycled every 4 hours, creating a brief window of reduced protection. If timed correctly, it could be their opportunity. And the small scout ship hidden among merchant vessels orbiting the Centauri homeworld Lieutenant Blackwood reviewed their intelligence with Rivera and Dr. Green. The execution is scheduled for mid-cycle tomorrow, Rivera said, pointing to a display showing a massive arena structure. We've identified 3 entry points with minimal security. The problem is getting inside without being detected. What about the maintenance tunnels? Blackwood asked. Possible, but risky. They're patrolled irregularly. Dr. Green looked up from her medical console. Commander Miller's neural implant is still functioning normally. The nanits are integrated successfully. But I'm concerned about the execution device itself. What do we know about it? Blackwood asked. Green displayed a schematic they had obtained through their intelligence network. It's called a neural disintegrator, designed to attack the nervous system gradually, causing maximum pain before death. It's barbaric. Can Miller survive it? Blackwood's voice was tense. Not normally, no. But his neural implant might offer some protection if we can boost its capabilities at the right moment. Rivera looked thoughtful. If we could create a power surge in the execution system itself, it could give Miller the window he needs, Blackwood finished. But we'd need to get command access to their systems. Or, Rivera said slowly, we could plant a device that would activate when the disintegrator reaches full power. A feedback loop, Blackwood nodded. That's our plan. Rivera, prepare the device. Dr. Green, monitor Miller's implant. I'll handle getting it to him. In the detention facility, Miller was taken from his cell for what the guards called preparation. They brought him to a sterile room where Centauri medical officers examined him, taking readings of his vital signs and neural patterns. Healthy specimen, one said clinically, should provide an excellent demonstration. They injected him with a clear fluid that burned in his veins. Miller recognized it as a stimulant designed to keep him conscious during the execution, ensuring he would feel everything. When they returned him to his cell, he was genuinely weak. The stimulant had side effects, making his heart race and his vision blur. But it wouldn't matter. His plan didn't depend on physical strength. Vex looked at him with pity. I've seen this before, the preparation. I'm sorry, human. Miller managed a small smile. Don't be sorry yet. The Forian's skin shifted in a pattern of deep blue and gold, a pattern Miller had come to recognize as respect. That night, as the facility grew quiet, Miller detected new vibrations from the nanits. A message from Blackwood. Package coming. Morning meal. He understood. They had managed to bribe or coerce someone to include something with his final meal. It would be risky, the guards might inspect the food, but it was their best chance. Morning came too quickly. Miller was given a larger meal than usual, a strange courtesy before his execution. As he ate, he felt something small and hard in the bland protein paste. He palmed it carefully, then slipped it into his mouth when the guards weren't looking. It was a tiny device, no larger than a grain of rice. Once swallowed, it would integrate with the nanits already in his system. A final piece of his escape plan. By mid-morning, the entire detention block was in motion. Prisoners were confined to their cells as guards prepared for the transfer to the execution arena. Miller heard the heavy footsteps approaching before his cell door slid open. 4 guards entered, led by a Centauri officer whose frills displayed the colors of the security division. Commander John Miller, the officer said formally, by order of the Centauri Collective, you are to be executed for crimes against our people. The High Executor awaits. They placed restraints on his wrists and ankles, then led him from the cell. Vex called after him. Die well, human. The Forian's skin flashed a brilliant pattern of red, gold, and white, a color combination Miller had never seen from her before. The walk to the arena took nearly 20 minutes. They led him through parts of the facility he hadn't seen before, including a massive atrium filled with Centauri civilians who had come to witness the execution. They chittered and clicked as he passed, some reaching out as if trying to touch. The condemned human. Finally, they arrived at a preparation room, adjacent to the arena itself. Through an opening, Miller could see a vast amphitheater filled with thousands of Centauri. At its center stood a raised platform with a neural disintegrator, a chair surrounded by ominous machinery. Overseer Krastal was waiting in the preparation room, along with a taller, more ornately dressed Centauri that Miller assumed was High Executor Dravzek. The human seemed subdued, Dravzek observed, his voice deeper and more resonant than Krastal's. I expected more resistance. They break easily, Executor, Krastal replied, though this one held out longer than most during interrogation. Miller kept his head down, appearing defeated. Inside, he was counting seconds, synchronizing with the defense system cycle he had memorized. The tiny device he had swallowed was now active, connected to both his neural implant and the nanits. Blackwood's team would be in position. The device would be ready. The only question now, whether Miller could survive what came next. Bring him, Dravzek ordered. It's time to show the galaxy the price of defying the Centauri Collective. As they led him toward the arena, Miller focused on one thought. The Centauri had designed an elaborate execution to break the human spirit. Instead, they had given him exactly what he needed to escape. The roar of the crowd hit Miller like a physical force as the guards led him into the arena. Thousands of Centauri filled the tiered seating that surrounded the central platform. Their clicking and chittering created a sound like endless rainfall on a metal roof. Miller kept his head down. His shoulders slumped. Every step appeared to be a struggle, exactly the image of a broken human that the Centauri wanted to show. But his eyes never stopped moving, taking in every detail of the arena that the neural disintegrator dominated the center a chair, surrounded by curved metal arms that would position themselves around his head once he was secured. Behind it stood a control panel where a Centauri technician was making final adjustments as they approached the platform. Miller noticed something through a service entrance, a flash of movement that didn't match the Centauri patterns. Blackwood's team was in position. High Executor Dravzek stepped onto the platform ahead of Miller. The crowd immediately fell silent in respect. Dravzek raised his upper limbs in a ceremonial gesture. Citizens of the Centauri Collective, his amplified voice boomed across the arena. Today we witness justice for crimes against our people. Miller barely listened to the speech that followed, a long list of alleged human offenses against the Centauri, most of which were either exaggerated or completely fabricated. Instead, he focused on the gentle vibration from the nanits in his system. 30 seconds to defense cycle. The guards forced Miller onto the execution chair. Cold metal restraints closed around his wrists, ankles, and chest. The curved arms of the neural disintegrator began to position themselves around his head, their tips glowing with a faint blue energy. Dravzek approached Miller, lowering his voice so only those on the platform could hear. Before you die, human, know that your suffering will serve the greater glory of the Centauri. Your kind will learn fear when they see what becomes of their commander. Miller looked up, meeting the High Executor's compound eyes for the first time. You're right about one thing, he said quietly. They will remember what happens here today. Dravzek seemed surprised by Miller's response, but quickly regained his composure. He turned back to the crowd and raised his limbs again. Let the execution begin. The Centauri technician at the control panel activated the system. The arms around Miller's head hummed with increasing power. Blue energy crackled between them, growing more intense by the second. Miller's body tensed as the first wave of pain washed over him. It started as a tingling sensation at the base of his skull, then rapidly intensified. The crowd watched in fascination as the human began to shake but inside Miller's body, something else was happening. The device he had swallowed was now fully active, working in concert with his neural implant. As the disintegrator reached its first power plateau, the device sent a precisely timed signal dot in orbit above the planet. Lieutenant Blackwood watched the execution on a secure feed they had tapped into. "Now, Rivera," she ordered. Communications Specialist Rivera activated their signal booster, amplifying the tiny device's output 1,000-fold. Signal sent. In the arena, Miller's neural implant received the boosted signal and executed its program. Instead of trying to block the disintegrator's energy, it created a channel, directing the energy through specific neural pathways and back into the disintegrator itself. The result was immediate and dramatic. The blue energy between the arms of the disintegrator suddenly flared white-hot. Sparks erupted from the control panel. The Zentari technician jumped back in alarm as his console exploded in a shower of components. Throughout the arena, power systems began to fail. Emergency lights flickered and died. The main lighting system went dark, plunging the vast space into chaos. The restraints on Miller's wrists and ankles clicked open as their electronic locks failed dot in the darkness and confusion. Only Miller knew what was happening. He slipped from the chair and moved quickly to the edge of the platform. The neural disintegrator continued to spark and crackle behind him, providing brief flashes of illumination. Centauri guards shouted and stumbled in the darkness, their compound eyes less effective without light. Miller used the confusion to make his way toward the service entrance, where he had seen movement earlier. A hand grabbed his arm as he reached the entrance. Miller tensed, ready to fight, but then heard a familiar voice. "Commander, it's Blackwood. This way." She led him through a narrow maintenance tunnel, lit only by the small tactical light on her wrist. They moved quickly, following a path they had memorized from stolen facility schematics. "Rivera and Green?" Miller asked as they ran. "In position at exit point 3, Rivera has the package you requested." Miller nodded. The package was crucial to his plan, not just escape, but turning this disaster for Earth into a strategic advantage. They reached a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Blackwood took the center path without hesitation. After another 100 meters, they emerged into a small storage room. Rivera and Dr. Green were waiting, both dressed in stolen Zentari maintenance uniforms. "Commander," Rivera said with relief, "good to see you alive." Dr. Green immediately began scanning Miller with a medical device. Neural stress is high, but within tolerable limits. The implant worked perfectly. "No time for a full checkup," Miller said. "The backup power will come online any minute." Rivera handed Miller a small device that looked like a data chip. "As requested, it'll interface with any Zentari terminal." Miller pocketed the chip. "Where's the nearest command terminal?" "Level 3, Section 4, Blackwood replied. "But security will be heaviest there, especially once they realize you're gone." "That's exactly where I need to go." The other 3 exchanged glances. "Sir," Blackwood said carefully, "the extraction point is in the opposite direction. Our ship is ready for immediate departure." Miller looked at each of them. "The plan has changed. I didn't come this far just to escape. The Zentari are planning something big against Earth. I picked up fragments during the interrogation. This is our chance to find out what." Before anyone could argue, the lights in the storage room flickered and came on. The backup power was online. "Alarms will be next," Rivera warned Dot as if on cue. A piercing sound filled the facility, the Zentari equivalent of a siren. "You 3 head to the extraction point," Miller ordered. "I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. "With all due respect, Commander," Blackwood said firmly, "we didn't come all this way to leave you behind." Miller looked at her, then at the others. Their expressions made it clear they wouldn't leave without him. 15 minutes, he conceded. "In and out. If I'm not at the extraction point by then, leave without me. That's an order." They moved out of the storage room into a wider corridor, The facility was in full alert now. They could hear the distinctive sound of Centauri security forces moving in the distance. Miller led them toward Level 3, Section 4, toward the heart of Centauri command and control, and toward the information that could save Earth from whatever the Centauri were planning. The execution that was meant to break him had instead given him an unprecedented opportunity. Miller had no intention of wasting it. Level 3, Section 4 was eerily quiet compared to the chaos elsewhere in the facility. Miller and his team moved cautiously through the corridors, following Rivera's directions based on the stolen schematics. Security will be concentrated at the execution arena and the exit points, Miller whispered. They won't expect us to go deeper into the facility. They reached a sealed door marked with Centauri symbols. Rivera studied them briefly. Central Command Access, he translated. It's locked with a biometric scanner. Miller looked at the scanner. Can you bypass it? Not quickly, Rivera admitted. These systems are isolated from the main power grid. The blackout didn't affect them. Blackwood gestured to a vent near the floor. Alternative route? Rivera checked his handheld device. The ventilation system connects to an adjacent room. We might be able to access it from there. They backtracked and found the room a small maintenance closet. The vent cover came off easily, revealing a tight but navigable passage. I'll go first, Miller said. Despite his recent ordeal, he moved with determined efficiency, crawling through the narrow space. The vent led to a larger room filled with humming equipment data servers for the Centauri command system. Miller helped the others through, then surveyed the room. Perfect, he said, spotting a terminal. Rivera, can you access their system from here? Rivera examined the terminal. It's not secured like the main command center. They didn't expect anyone to get this far. He connected the chip Miller had brought to the terminal. The screen filled with Centauri symbols and diagrams. I need time to download their files, Rivera said, his fingers moving rapidly over the interface. Make it quick, Blackwood urged, watching the door. Dr. Green, help the commander. He needs medical attention. Miller waved Green away. I'm fine. Focus on the mission. But Green was insistent. You've been through neural torture and a partial execution. At least let me give you something for the pain. Miller relented, allowing her to inject him with a mild stimulant and pain reliever. The effect was immediate. His vision sharpened, and the burning sensation in his nerves subsided. Got something, Rivera announced. Fleet deployments, communication, protocols, and ... This is interesting. He pointed to a set of coordinates. Heavy fleet concentration near the Proxima border. Way more ships than needed for normal patrols. Miller leaned closer. They're planning an attack. That's why they wanted information about Earth's defenses. The data shows they're moving into position in 3 days, Rivera continued. A surprise attack on multiple human colonies simultaneously. If they succeed, Earth's outer defense line would collapse, Blackwood realized. They could push straight to the core systems. Miller downloaded the intelligence to his neural implant. This is what we came for. Let's move. Just as they prepared to leave, the terminal flashed red. An alert message appeared on the screen. They've detected the access, Rivera warned. Security protocols activated. The door to the server room slid open. 4 Centauri guards rushed in, weapons raised. Behind them stood Overseer Kraustoll, his frills flared in anger. The human lives, he hissed. Impossible. Miller stepped forward, placing himself between the Centauri and his team. Nothing is impossible for humans, Overseer. That's something you should have learned by now. Kraustoll gestured to his guards. Kill them all. No more spectacles, no more ceremonies. The guards raised their weapons. Miller tensed, ready to fight. Despite the overwhelming odds, suddenly, the room plunged into darkness again. The emergency lights flickered out. In the confusion, Miller heard a familiar sound, a Forian communication pattern. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the doorway. The Forian prisoner from Miller's cell stood there, her skin glowing with intense patterns that temporarily blinded the Zentari guards. "Now," Miller shouted, launching himself at the nearest guard. The fight was brief, but violent. Miller and Blackwood subdued 2 guards, while Rivera and Green tackled another. The Forian's light show kept Crazed-Toll disoriented long enough for Miller to reach him. The Overseer fought back fiercely, his clawed limbs slashing at Miller. One caught Miller across the shoulder, drawing blood. But Miller had faced worse pain in the past few days. He delivered a powerful blow to what he knew was a vulnerable spot in Zentari anatomy, the base of the neck frills. Crazed-Toll collapsed, stunned but still conscious. "Why?" the Overseer gasped. "Why not just escape? Why risk everything for information?" Miller leaned close. "Because that's what humans do. We don't just survive. We make sure those who threaten us fail." The Forian made an urgent pattern with her lights. Time was running out. "Let's go," Miller ordered. "Extraction point. Move." They ran through the corridors, following the Forian, who seemed to know the facility's layout better than their schematics. Alarms blared throughout the complex. Twice they had to hide as security teams rushed past. They reached a maintenance exit that led to a small landing pad used for supply deliveries. Their scout ship was there, engines already running. "How did she know?" Blackwood asked, gesturing. To the Forian. "I think she's been planning her own escape for a long time," Miller replied. "We just gave her the opportunity." As they boarded the ship, the Forian hesitated. "Come with us," Miller said, extending his hand. She considered for a moment, then shook her head. Her skin displayed a pattern that somehow conveyed gratitude and farewell. She slipped away into the shadows of the facility. The scout ship lifted off, just as Zentari security forces burst onto the landing pad. Energy weapons fired after them, but Rivera's piloting skills kept them ahead of the blasts. They accelerated, away from the planet's surface. "We're not clear yet," Blackwood warned. "Orbital defenses will be activated. And once they realize what we took, they'll send everything they have after us." As if confirming her words, the ship's sensors detected multiple Zentari warships moving to intercept them. "We can't outrun a battle cruiser," Rivera said, his voice tense. Miller smiled for the first time since his capture. "We don't need to." He activated his neural implant, sending a specific signal pattern into space. "I've been recording everything since they captured me, including their fleet positions and patrol patterns." In the distance, space seemed to ripple. As 6 Earth Alliance stealth destroyers decloaked, they had been hiding at the edge of the system, waiting for Miller's signal. "This is Admiral Cobb of the Earth Alliance vessel Freedom." A voice came over their communication system. "Good to see you alive, Commander Miller. We've been waiting for your call." The Zentari ships hesitated, suddenly outgunned and outmaneuvered. "Get U.S. home, Admiral," Miller replied. "And alert Earth Command. We have intelligence on a planned Zentari attack. We need to prepare a welcome for them." As their small ship docked with the Freedom, Miller looked back at the Zentari homeworld growing smaller in the view screen. The public execution that was meant to break humanity's spirit had instead given them the key to their survival. 3 days later, when the Zentari fleet moved to attack the human colonies, they found the Earth Alliance fleet waiting for them. The battle was brief and decisive. With their element of surprise lost and their attack plans compromised, the Zentari suffered a crushing defeat. In the aftermath, Miller stood on the bridge of his new command, the Earth Alliance vessel Defiance. His wounds had healed, though. Doctors said he might always carry some neural scarring from the disintegrator. Lieutenant Blackwood, now his first officer, joined him at the view screen. "The Zentari have requested peace talks," she reported. Apparently, High Executor Drav Zek has been removed from power. The new leadership is more cautious about confronting humans. Miller nodded. They learned an important lesson. Never underestimate how far a human will go to survive and to protect their own. As the Defiance set course for Earth, Miller thought about the Forian who had helped them escape. Somewhere on the Centauri homeworld, resistance continued. Perhaps someday they would meet again. For now, though, he was content with the knowledge that what had been planned as his end had instead become a new beginning, not just for him, but for humanity's future among the stars.